The Weekend UpNate. The Weekend UpNate. Your weekly recap of news, current events, and trending stories. Let's do this. The Weekend UpNate with your host, Nate Armbruster.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Weekend UpNate. You may have noticed another random dump of episodes that I've procrastinated putting out, and I'm finally catching up, folks. So, you know what that means. You got a lot of listening to do. Thanks for being here. So the last week, let's see, what have I been up to? My birthday was last Tuesday, April 18th, and I'm not necessarily, I don't really celebrate it, I guess. Like, I acknowledge it. I feel like I'm past all the fun ones, that's all, you know? Like, I'm officially in my 30s now, you know? I'm 31. While I realize it's not old, it does feel like it sometimes. It just feels like, okay, what's the next milestone, you know? I feel like after 25, it's like just the decades, you know? So, yeah, I don't really do much. I feel like a pretty, I don't know, is it lame? I don't know. A lot of people like to go out and do crazy stuff on their birthday. I'm the opposite. I like to just stay home, maybe get dinner, and that's it, you know? However, it was a great birthday, so that was awesome. And on the weekend before my birthday, I was at Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle in Detroit, well, Royal Oak, which is near Detroit, and it was a great time. I was with this guy, Ian Bagg, who's great. He's known for doing crowd work, right? So that was fun. It's fun to watch somebody who's like really good at that kind of stuff do their thing. So the shows were fun. One of the best parts of the weekend, though, which I thought was cool, at least, this guy, Mike Binder, I don't know if you're familiar, but he's like, he's a well-known, he's more known, I would say nowadays, as like a director, writer, but he started as a stand-up comedian back in like the 70s or 80s in Detroit, and he came by Saturday night and did a set because he was opening for Adam Sandler in Detroit that following Monday, the day before my birthday. So it was cool to like officially meet him, you know, just being from the same area and doing comedy and like hearing some old stories is always fun. You know, and then on top of that, hearing him, you know, he liked my set. He said it was funny, which I thought, you know, it somewhat validates you, you know? I'm like, wow, this guy's written, you know, legit movies. He knows comedy. So hearing him go, oh, I liked your stuff. And he didn't have to say that. He didn't even have to talk to me, you know? He was just there doing a quick set. So that was fun. I would consider this a top-tier birthday for me. Of all 31 of them, I would say this was a good one. It's always better than the alternative. In this case, it would have been, oh, wow, I had a horrible set, and Mike Binder told me I sucked. Moving on. So, cut to this past weekend. I did a couple of shows. This is what I'm loving about this. I'm making the jump to headliner, right? A lot of these shows I'm doing now, I get to headline, which is a lot of fun. I'm getting to do more time. I can do like up to an hour if I want to, you know? So it's been a lot of fun to really stretch my legs. So this has been fun. But most of these gigs, you know, it's my first time headlining there and they're mostly smaller towns, kind of questionable shows, right? Like you don't know what you're going to get, but that's how you start. So if someone's going to give you a shot and let you do the full show, then, you know, they're going to give you the harder, I don't even know if it's not that they're harder. It's just you don't know what you're going to get. A lot of these bar shows, these one-nighter type situations, they can be hit and miss. Some of them are really amazing and a lot of fun. Others are questionable. So Friday night, I go do a show in a little town called Springfield, Michigan. It's near Battle Creek, if you know where that's at. It's if you're looking at your hand as the state of Michigan, it's right near where the crease from your thumb meets the middle of your hand, right? And the show was fun, but it was a damn disaster. You know, it's definitely not one I need anyone to ever see. But the coolest thing happened, right? So there was maybe we had like 50, 60 people, but the room seats like 50, 60 people. So it feels good. You know, it feels like it's full but the setup's a little interesting. There's first of all, it's at 7:00 on a Friday, which means if anyone's there, they just got out of work like 2 hours ago. And it's like, who's ready to like decompress like that soon. You know, I feel like Friday night's always the hit and miss show because people can be in a weird mood. They got, all this other stuff's on their mind, right? Assuming that they just left work a couple hours ago if they do like a 9 to 5. Saturday, you had all day to relax, and then you go out. Those shows are usually more fun. Everyone's in a better mood. But Friday, you can get some weird people coming out. And that last Friday, that's exactly how it went. Every weirdo in this town showed up. I mean, it's a small town, too, and they were all good people. It's just they were drunk. And I haven't had a crowd like this messy drunk in a while, okay? Like, I'm not even... the thing is, it's not even like heckling when someone's just talking. It's just rude. I don't know. It's not really a heckle because it's like, what do you want me to say to this? It was like a lot of stuff like just incoherent babbling. And I'm, and I handle it. It's kind of like whack-a-mole, It's just like you got this table over here. You got literally a woman in the front row crocheting. I'm not kidding. This is a first for me. Okay, I got up on stage and I'm like, are you knitting? And she immediately corrected me and said it's crocheting. And I was like, okay, this is what it's going to be like, isn't it? So I learned the difference. Me and the whole crowd learned the difference between crocheting and knitting that night, okay? Apparently, this is a big rift in the yarn community. This woman is knitting a hat during my show, just in time for spring and summer, okay? And while this was, like, hilarious, just because, like, what the hell's going on, So I deal with that. And that's just, it is what it is. She wasn't like actually being rude. I feel like also I gave her the benefit of the doubt. She didn't really admit to this, but I was like, you know what, maybe this helps her focus. Some people listen better if they have a task, She's like, maybe they're fidgety or something, right? So I was like, maybe this will go fine. And she ended up being probably the best audience member in the entire room. It got so bad at one point. I was like, I wish the entire audience was just crocheting right now because that means you'd all at least be working on something and you wouldn't be talking. I would rather have silence at this point, And I had there was a woman in the back who, she would respond to everything I said, but you could tell she was wasted. And I mean like way too drunk, like incoherent. I don't even know what to say back to you. So anything I said, she would respond. And then without even being asked, she goes, I'm a teacher. And I'm like, oh, God, this woman's teaching these poor kids, However, I get it. If you're a teacher, that's got to be a tough job. That sounds awful. So maybe another, I'm like, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Maybe you had a shitty day. You had to spend all day with someone else's kids, and they're probably assholes. If you just need to let loose and get wasted, do it up. But you're still talking during the show and it's obnoxious. And the fact is, it's like you're too drunk. Like I can't even respond to you because you're not even on this planet. You know what I mean? That's the situation I was in. Now, this was an easy situation to handle. Okay, this was like, it's like playing whack-a-mole. Did I say that already? Maybe I did. I don't know. Maybe I said it in my head, but I'm literally like bopping everyone on the head as soon as they say something. And it was actually, and this is the thing, I don't want to say, because it wasn't bad, because what I dealt with, the way the show went, it went great for what I had, right? However, it's not the ideal situation. But that being said, although it was easy to handle, it's not the way you should act during comedy shows. You know what I mean? Like you should be out having a good time. Why you ruin it? And then why are you going to ruin it? And this table right in front is just a sweet couple, right? Holding hands the whole time. Literally I guess the two people who acted the most adult. The most adult, is that correct? You know what I'm trying to say. They just sat there pleasantly and watched the show, and they're just looking at you like, oh my God, what is happening? And I had to mention it. I'm like, you guys have been the sweetest people the whole show. You just came here to watch the show. They maybe had 2 glasses of wine each, and they were out to have a nice night. And everyone else just destroyed their whole evening, So this drunk woman who's the teacher, right? I end up asking her, I'm like, well, what school district are you in? Because I'm sure you teach someone's kid here, And she wouldn't tell me. I tried to get her to admit it, but she wouldn't. Now, I saw she was sitting with a guy, too. So I'm like, okay, I'm not trying to pick a fight here. I'm not going to, be rude to her. Also, there's no point in being rude to someone who's that incoherent. Not to me, at least. I don't, what's that going to do other than make her upset? Because in her head, she's just responding to me. Like, she doesn't when you're that drunk, you don't realize how stupid you sound, right? And she wasn't even saying anything bad or mean. She would respond. That's all. I'd be like, oh, I'm from Chicago. She'd be like, I like Chicago. And then, like, shit like that, So I would respond. I would, and it would usually, for the most part, it was funny the whole time. And then it got to a point where I'm like, halfway through the show, she spoke up again after just kind of just sitting there for a while. And I noticed she was with the guy, right? So I was like, I don't want to say anything that would piss him off because I'm not trying to, like, be rude. I'm just trying to handle the situation. And he didn't even look, like, I saw him nudging her a few times, but he didn't really, like, look pissed. He just, or embarrassed, But I couldn't imagine, now maybe I'm biased because I love comedy. I've been around it for so long now that if I went to a show in public and whoever I'm with, wife, girlfriend, fiance, friend, anybody, no matter my relationship to them, if they were yelling out shit and blacked out, like so bad, I would maybe encourage us to leave. I'd be like, let's just get out of here. People are mad at us. Other tables are starting to look at us like this isn't working. But no, they just sat there. The whole show, the opener did about a half hour. I did about 55 minutes. And I would say about 45 minutes into my set, they got up and left. Now, I when I say they got up and left, he got up and literally carried her out. She was like hanging on him and they walked out and she left her coat. Like, it was a mess. And it was like 8:00. You know what I mean? By the time I got off, it was like 8:30. And she is that wasted. Blew my mind. This is it, though. This is what and oddly enough, I wasn't even mad. Like, in a lot of time, maybe it's just because I appreciate the opportunity to do something like, like a little more time and like really kind of do whatever I want. It's like my show or whatever. Like, you don't have to worry about being the first person up there. The first person goes up and usually sets it up for you so it goes well. And he did fine. It was fine. Like, but by the time I got up there, everyone was wasted. Also, there was this person just going to the bathroom every 5 minutes. I'm pretty positive they were doing cocaine as they were screaming the whole show. I would be like, oh, I grew up near Detroit or whatever. They'd be like, yeah, like, yelling, like, top of their lungs, as if we're at a concert. And it's like, we're just in the side room at this bar, It was bananas. But like I said, when I got up there, I was like, this crocheting person is going to be the worst person. Like, you can kind of see in the crowd, like, okay, if anyone's going to be a wild card, it's going to be this one. But no, she wasn't. She ended up being like the most, like, enjoyed the show the most. You know what I mean? And then last night I did a show in Portage, Indiana, Northwest Indiana. Okay, now this is basically, in some sense, it's, maybe I'm wrong here, but it feels like it's an extension of Chicago, right? Like somewhat a suburb, but it's like an hour away. But you're in a different state, and it's also completely different. But like most of the people there, it's like, yeah, you could just take the train in, right? But it's very industrial, as you're like near like Gary, Indiana. So it's like, it's very, you wouldn't expect there to be like a marina there. However, I did a show at a marina in Port of Indiana, which is kind of like nestled in between, it seems like. Okay, so I don't know how many listeners I have in Portage, okay, or if anyone who was at the show found this. But yeah, it seems nestled in between some, I don't want to say because it looks fine. It seems like a fine town, and the people there were great. The crowd was awesome, but I just didn't know people would like dock a boat at a marina in Indiana, This became the joke of the evening, however. I didn't realize, like, it feels like, if you have a boat in Indiana, like, you've made it, right? Even if it's a shitty boat, that is your pride and joy. By the way, the word or phrase yacht club is a stretch for most of these places. I've been to a few others. I've done shows like the one in Chicago. You're like, wow, these are real yachts. Like, the people who own these, I don't know what they do. I couldn't even fathom making that much money. First of all, just to afford to park it in the city of Chicago, to dock it in the city. That's nuts. Like the amount you have to pay. On top of that, you have to own the boat or make payments on it, which are probably more than my, entire monthly expenses. It's got to be easily. Yeah, I don't know why I said probably, okay? Of course it is. I'm broke. So, I would figure like this is like a real yacht club, right? This is where this is where people who own yachts hang out. And you go to like a town like Portage, Indiana. There's even where I'm from in Michigan, just a suburban town. There's some smaller lakes around, and there's like a bar on it. It's called whatever yacht club, right? But I'm like, there's no yachts here. Like a yacht couldn't fit on this lake. You know what I mean? But I feel that's like the mentality of boaters. Like if they want to dock their boat there, they got to call it a yacht. It's a yacht club because no one's going to pay to go to a canoe club, okay? That doesn't sound as cool by any means. So all in all, this was a pretty fantastic weekend. A couple of fun shows in some weird-ass towns. And, I got some new jokes are cooking. We're coming along. I got some new stuff since the special. By the way, go check that out. There's a link down below. I would appreciate that. Give that a watch. And then what else did I do this weekend? I also caught I say this as if it's on Netflix. So I caught it on demand. And I heard about this Boston bomber documentary on Netflix. And I'm sure you remember this, the Boston Marathon bombing. Now, I'm of the camp, like, there's so many documentaries now. Like, it seems like there's one on, do we have to have one on every single event that's ever happened? And the thing is, I'm kind of complaining about it, but I'll also watch them because somehow, if you can make this story interesting, I'll check it out. Like, I almost enjoy that genre more than some, like some written comedies, But there's one on Jared Fogle, the subway creep, which I also watched, which it's interesting because I guess I didn't really know the full story. You see the news stories and then he ends up in prison or whatever. And sure, I believe it. I don't need proof that he was a creep. I'm sure there was proof. You know what I mean? They put him away for however long, which I already forgot about, even though I watched the documentary. But they break it down to like who knew, they interview the characters who are like, and I say characters because they're characters. I also feel like the type of person that would agree to be on this documentary, you got to be a special person to be like, yeah, sure. I guess in a sense they're heroes. Once you're on to somebody who's doing some creepy stuff like that, and you're part of taking them down, that's a good thing you did. I think that's a good thing. But I'm also like, do you really want to relive that? Or do you really want to do these people get paid? I wonder. But the Netflix documentary about the Boston Marathon bombing was pretty interesting. But the thing is, these are all like these miniseries. They're like, they shove them into 3 episodes. They either drag them out to 3 or they cram it all into 3. And I don't know if you remember how all this went down, but it was like on my birthday. That was my 21st birthday. I'll never forget it because they even bring it up. It's April 18th. So if you watch it, you'll see. And I'm not, whatever. I guess I'm spoiling it, but they caught the guy. But I remember on my birthday, it was my 21st birthday. We were at the bar and they found the guy in the boat. That's where they found the guy in the boat in that guy's backyard. And I remember us all watching the coverage live, all of the chaos and the amount of cops shooting at this guy. And before, this is a kind of a talking point in the documentaries, people talking about how the police maybe in some cases overreacted or they shot too much, like a bullet missed a baby, because they're in a residential area for some of these altercations, a couple of them, in Watertown or whatever. And, in one particular story they mentioned a baby was sleeping in a crib and the bullet missed the baby by inches, and they fired 200 something rounds and nobody got hit. Nobody, no other cops, not the suspect. Thankfully, no, people just in their houses, But man, you would think, and I know that I don't know how to fix any police issues. Like, I have no idea. I have no idea what the right answer is, but I feel like they got to be better at shooting. I mean, I know there was a lot going on, but I'm like, man, when you got like every cop in town shooting at one guy and you can't hit him, god damn. But this happened like twice. And then when they got in the boat, when they started shooting at the guy, and like, you know what I mean? And they missed him. They didn't come close to him. Crazy. However, I mean, they eventually got him or whatever. But like, could you also, like, I feel bad for the guy who, I mean, I don't know. It would just be weird to be like looking out your backyard and you see blood on your boat. And you're like, god damn. While they're searching, there's like this national manhunt. Also, see, this is what is cool about this documentary, okay? Because I thought, okay, and I'm not trying to, I mean, it was a big deal. I mean, you can't just set off bombs, you know what I mean? Like, you can't do that shit. I mean, this is a huge deal. This is some crazy shit. But looking back on it, I don't know if I just wasn't following the story in depth or whatever, but I had no idea a lot of what kind of happened in between events. Like, there's a guy who they interview on the documentary who was carjacked by the bombers. Like, he's like parked or whatever, and they force him, they get in his car, hold him at gunpoint, and then he's like, okay, we got to stop for gas or whatever. And at the gas station, the guy who was carjacked just books it, runs across the street to another gas station. And the cops come up to him, he calls the police or whatever. The cops show up. He's like, they took my car. Here's this. He goes, I have a tracker on it. And he knew the GPS, like, I don't know what it was, number. Okay. It's not like an Apple AirTag, right? It's like he had just like a GPS system in his car, and he knew the number. So they found it like immediately, which is nuts to me. Like, what are the odds as a criminal? Okay. Someone on the run, you carjack someone who knows their car, like the serial number on their car. You know what I mean? That whole part of the story was bananas to me. Just crazy. By the way, I'm not like trying to make jokes about what happened, because it's pretty tragic and crazy. But while I'm watching this, and they're leading into everything, and talking about the marathon that day and whatever, what was going on, paramedics who were at the scene when this happened and stuff like that. That's like the one good thing, I guess. That's like it's like the smallest good thing that of all that situation. The whole situation is there were already medics there, because it's an athletic event. Is that what I'm trying to say? People collapse when they run marathons. But I just know that if I were running that marathon that day, I would not have been close to that finish line when those bombs went off. Which kind of like gave me some hope, is like, okay, because no one's going to do this for the last person that runs the marathon. You know what I mean? Like, I just think, and this is 2013, and they brought this up a little bit in it's not like you knew, because although it was only 10 years ago, I mean, technology, social media was so different still, it's not quite what it is today. And I just have this image in my head of me running, like, dying, just like, oh, I'm going to make it. And I'm maybe halfway through it, and all this stuff happens, and I don't know about it, because who's checking their phones during while they're running, And you run up to the point where they like block it off, and it's like, nope, sorry, you got to go home. It's, all this stuff happened, and you're like, shit, I ran, half a marathon, and like, this was, you know what I mean? Like, there were so many people who probably were like either relieved because they didn't have to complete it, which is probably how I'd feel. I mean, it's the perfect excuse to be like, hey man, I was there. You get the whole like accolades of being like, I was running in that marathon. However, you can be like, I didn't have to complete it. I was 10 miles in when the bombs went off, and they made me turn around and go home. So that's like the one silver, like that. There was somebody there who it was like their first marathon, and they were like, man, I don't even want to do this. What am I doing? They have all these regrets, and then they get to the point where people are like, you gotta go home. This is too fucked up. And they're like, oh, fine. Like, fine, I guess I won't finish the marathon. So anyway, that's it for this week. I appreciate you listening. Thanks so much. Go check out that documentary. It's actually pretty good. And if you were at the shows this last weekend, I appreciate you checking out the podcast. And more to come here on Weekend UpNate. We'll talk to you soon.
You've been listening to the Weekend UpNate with Nate Armbruster, and you liked it, didn't you? If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review, and be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week on the Weekend UpNate.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.